so beautiful about it is that it's yellow. It's my favorite color besides gold. So I'm excited to have it. But International Women's Day is really about, in my opinion, connecting the dots and saying what we could do together as a holistic and humanity and compassion and drive and everything else. So we've got together today our NDILC Leadership Council, which I'm so thankful everyone taking the valuable time to make a special event for it. And as I was on the call this morning with the United Nations Women's Group that started 10 years ago, some of the themes that were being talked about today was really talking about that intersectional, intergenerational, and bringing out a radical self. And that's one thing I can definitely say about myself is I bring the radical self to the table in terms of habit. So with that being said, I'd like to kick it off with Chitra. One of the things I just got done interviewing France this morning also, and it was talking about how AI is the #1 field that we don't have enough women in all capacity. And you being from India, you being on the council, being our 35-year AI specialist, I'd love to welcome you to the table first and talk about what it's like in India, what it's like here, how has the changes that happened, and what does International Women's Day mean to you? So welcome.
Thank you, Desiree. It's a pleasure to be here sharing this session with all of you on NDILC with my sisters. I remember when I was a graduate student here, when I came to the US as a graduate student, this is very early on, they had a computer forum group. It was sisters spelled with a Y, S-Y-S-T-E-R-S. And there's a pun to it because computer systems, so women working in computer systems are sisters. So I used to be a lurker there because I was very new to the country and I became part of it, just kind of understanding, the language and the issues of the day. So International Women's Day, it means obviously immensely, it's an immensely important day to all of us. Right from the time I went to engineering school in India. So at that time, we were 9 women in a class of 320 in the batch, when I went to IIT. And it was celebrated as the largest women batch ever in IIT's 25-year history, of course, at that time. And it was very striking. I was flabbergasted that there were so very few women. So I said, and I got a chance to come to the US, I said, I am going to America. I'm going to see more women and it is going to be 50-50. I'm not going to be in the minority. I was so looking forward to it. And then I come here, join the computer science department, and I look around and I said, oops, I was, the things have not changed. The basically underrepresentation of women in STEM is a issue that transcends border. Anyway, since that time, therefore, it has become a mission for me in everything I do to find opportunities to fill the pipeline, promote the pipeline, nurture the pipeline. And given this year's theme is I choose to challenge inequity in salaries for women. I think if we can demonstrate that we treat women equitably for their merits, for the talents they bring, I think there will be a lot more passion and lot more drive for women to join this. There's so many struggles that are set up to join engineering in the STEM fields, and this being one of them. After all the struggle, if you're going to be paid less than another person makes, who is sitting right beside you with the same degree, then it is a setback. I think women will consider that a setback. So looking forward, I choose to challenge, and I practice it in my company. My company is all about Alzheimer's, right? Bringing AI technology to help the caregivers of people living with dementia. And statistically speaking, 2/3 of Alzheimer's patients in the US are women, and 2/3 of caregivers of Alzheimer's patients are women. And 2/3 of Chitra's company, my company, is women. So here, women stepping up to the plate to provide the right kind of tools and support to the women who deserve. So it's the daughters who are taking care of their loved ones, whether it's a man or a woman. And it just, for me, it's poignant that that our company, filled with such amazing women talent, is trying to change the nature of caregiving. So, Desiree, it's an amazing opportunity to be part of this team, where you started your conversation with the radicalization. I look at all of us rebels in one way or the other. We wouldn't have made it here had we not been rebelling against the status quo. So we choose to challenge status quo. That's what we are.
I love it. That is fantastic. And if you think about, I have to look at everyone on the screen, and you're right. We are rebels. We've already brought our radicalization out, and we've been doing it in our entire lives, right? So love it. Thank you. Thank you. And the humanity and the passion and the conviction to continue to push forward and make it an everyday thing and not just a day. So our next is Colombia. We've got Teresa here with her beautiful yellow earrings. So go for it, Teresa.
Gracias a todo el mundo que nos están mirando internacional de Colombia y de todas partes del mundo. Bienvenidos a esta sesión de celebración de mujeres en el Día Internacional para nosotros. Anyway, to translate, I'm just calling out because I did actually post my Facebook page as well as on our Women Who Lead page to welcome all the women all across the world, especially in Colombia and also in Spanish-speaking countries, to our Women Who Lead in celebration of Women's History Month and also Women International Day today. So first of all, thank you, Desiree, for the opportunity. Hello, everybody out there in the audience. And this is a great celebration. I just got off a call with 3 historic women that have played a significant role in real estate because next week we will feature them in our Women Who Lead Facebook page. And that includes Maggie Varani out of Berkshire Hathaway Home Services out of New Hampshire, Varani Real Estate, Berkshire Hathaway Home Services out of Alaska, Connie Ushamiro, and also I will feature Beth Wolf of Beth Wolf Real Living out of Houston. And they tell me that when they got into business, women weren't even able to hold title. And so, you know, in the real estate business, how much advancement have we made in history in the 40 years that they've been in the business, and how much more needs to change. We just recently saw an article that said that women are charged higher interest rates on loans, you know, when they're single women buyers buying real estate. So we've got to, you know, a little bit of, we still have a ways to go, right, in advancing. The other thing that Connie shared with me, she develops property out in Alaska, and how limited the number of investors are for women and in the banking industry. And so they are still discriminated when they come to say, I've got this huge real estate project, I want to build so-and-so many homes. They're still facing challenges because she's a woman-owned operator and also a real estate developer. So kind of how do we break that? How do we change that? I think those are the things that we all need to be talking about. Teacher, you mentioned equality and equity. Those are the things that we really want to pursue. But I'm honored to be here today to talk and to really kind of recognize all the women who have made significant impacts in history. I have to commend those immigrants that have come to this country and talk about my mother, Mercedes, who passed away when I was 18, and the courage that she had to come to this country, you know, and think about it, never, not knowing the language, not knowing anyone here when she came, and really establishing roots and making a significant impact so that it would allow us to be educated in this country, born here in the US, and also the opportunities that now we have that we can take our generations further on to create even more significant historical moments in time. So thank you again. I don't want to take a lot of time. I just want to also recognize that in real estate, there's a lot of AI opportunities. There's also a lot of opportunities in the technology fields where we do still see a lack of women in that business, and really understanding that and what entails so that we can get more women drivers into those opportunities. But still, that real estate for what we do is really a perfect field for women to get into, because it allows you to actually, the sky's the limit financially. You also have the opportunity to, invest as much time and as much as you personally can do it, if you have a family, to work in the business, with the fact that you still are respectful of making sure that you're able to operate, especially in the times that we have today of COVID, right, where you're doing dual jobs, you're helping your children get online to study, you're working your business. This still affords you that opportunity as well. So just kind of focus on real estate, focus on the advancements that we have, and the way that we still have to go to be able to make sure that we are equitable and are giving the same opportunities, same interest rate, same advantages that men get in this business.
So thank you very much for that. And it's interesting you brought Alaska, because I lived in Alaska for 3.5 years. It's a very, been there when I was 16 to 19. Yeah, talk about a different age group living there. Beautiful country. They give away actually their land. If you live there for more than 3 years, they give you 5 acres. So it's phenomenal. But you brought up some interesting things, is that, when I was interviewing in France earlier today in the real estate sector and what's going on in the clubhouse and various different things, that different platforms we've been experimenting with, is the ability to grow and partner and invest in different countries to help the ecosystem and help the advancement of going with it. Not only from that perspective, but for the women from all generations to be able to see the opportunities to have access to training and leadership. And this is what this is about. So I know in Colombia, there's been a lot of shifting and changes. It's like in every country, and in the pandemic, how's it got? So thank you very much for that. Next, we're going to go to Erica. You are our biggest traveler of the entire world. I think you've been to every single continent. I know you're been called back into the, from a reservist back into the Army, but talk to us a little bit about your world travels and what's that like? What does it mean to International Women's Day to you?
Yeah, thanks. Happy International Women's Day, ladies and men and the world. So, I've had the privilege of being around a lot of our NATO partners and interacting with women on the ground, nations such as Afghanistan and Africa and Korea. And what I had found was, it doesn't matter where we're from, we all pretty much seek the same things. We want good education for our children. We want healthcare. We want safe and secure environments. We share these things in common, and we generally are more community focused. And when you look at, in my field, conflict and crisis, women and children are disproportionately affected around the globe. And we're seeing that, here in the US as well, when you look at COVID and how many women have left the workforce to be a caregiver or were in service industries. So, we all want that stability, and we all want access to a livelihood, to earn an income for that independence. And when we do that, then our children have a better outcome to reach educational aspirations. When women don't bring an income in, then, studies will show that it's harder for that next generation to make it. So that landed me in a position where, you women know, but I got a chance to work on national policy, women, peace, and security. And that deals with looking at women across the globe and really going to the heart of conflict and crisis, whether it's natural disaster or conflict, and what atrocities happen. So even in our own country, we have human trafficking. Well, that happens around the world. And when you look at human trafficking and you look at child brides and you look at, rape and all these other things that are being utilized by our adversaries as human currency, which fuels the effort for instability and insecurity. And when you get women to the table, doesn't matter where in the world, and they have a say in what their community is going to do and what kind of dictator they're going to overthrow. Peace treaties essentially last 3 times as long. And there's all of these benefits that are proven by the United Nations and NATO. So when I think of International Women's Day, I think, I don't care what continent you're from, we all pretty much share in the same wants and desires. We're all human beings. And how do we get to a safe and secure environment and be able to provide a livelihood that gives them a little bit more independence?
Thank you for that, Erica. That's so powerful and moving.
Mhm.
the work that you were doing all those years at the Women's Security, and then also just the United Nations just today rolled out a new 5-6-part initiative and has the delegates from all different countries around the world to, and one of them was the crisis that you were talking about. The other one is that, how do we, all the different layers that go through it, and human trafficking, and how do we make sure, and the all the different components that go with it. It was just you just stopped in your tracks saying, now is the time, they have to take action, and all these countries signed on saying they're going to do it. So thank you for that work and bringing it to the table. I really appreciate it. Kelly.
Well, it's great to go after all my partners here. It's interesting for me. I have a very different background, but my background started in international business. I was mentioning I went to school in Munich, Germany. I got into international business. My education's in international business, and I ended up somehow in logistics and supply chain management. And I guess because it had that international piece to it. So I learned how to transport and provide solutions to companies from all sizes. I ran a sales force for UPS of about 1,200 people, 15 billion in revenue. And I moved a lot. I relocated 8 times, and I continued to travel around the world. I've been to every continent also. I put my toe in all the different oceans, and I love it. And I love it. And I think to myself, what did I see? And I have to really agree with Erica and echo what she was saying. What you start to learn is the commonalities between women all over the world. And you see women doing so many different things. So when I think about the theme today, because I've now retired and I've had more time to think about my career overall and women overall, when I think about choosing to challenge, I think about challenging our own internal ideas and our own internal inhibitions and our own internal lack of confidence that men never have. But women, we always think we can't do this, or that's too hard, or I need more expertise, or I've got to get a little bit more experience, not ready. Men never do that. And there is so much talent out there in women all over the world. And it's exciting to me when women come together. If you ever go to a conference, an all-female conference, you can feel the energy. And it's so different. Not that maybe men feel it too, but our energy is something. So I just get encouraged and excited when I think about women kind of breaking out of their own inhibitions, breaking out of what holds them back to do whatever it is they enjoy doing. Because as you can see here, it's a wide variety of things that women can do today. And I think we just need to be willing to take those steps. So I just want to encourage women to say yes, encourage women to work together to make things better because we can. And that's the way I'd sum it up, Desiree.
I love it. Well, I didn't know you had been to every single continent, and the fact that you had
well, not Antarctica, I gotta say that.
But Erica, have you been to Antarctica?
Yeah, I was going to ask.
No, but some days I feel like I am in Antarctica.
There you go. Close enough, as they say, close enough for government work. Oh, sorry, Erica. But yeah, no, the power of the ability, if you think about choose to challenge to be inspirational. It's my saying is inspirational for 2021. It was my goal that, we went through the pandemic and things are going and have and will continue to change. Change is evolution of law. It's period, but that's okay. It's just happening so quickly and so much so fast. So if we can all be inspirational, then to choose to challenge, it gives us more strength, I believe, because the fact is that if we do it from inspiration, we're excited to take that change. Fear is the number one inhibitor that keeps us back. That if we have inspiration and excitement, you go, you're in a party, you're in a group standing and you go, let's do it. And you're like, no, but everyone in the round is like, yeah, let's have fun doing it. You are inspired to go do it. And I think that, the timing could not have been better. One thing that came is that the audience, we learned from the ability in 2020 that we have a captive audience to see the isms. We did a piece, a couple months ago about the isms of sexism, racism, and all the different isms out there. And the idea are we have to have the ability to have a captive audience who can engage on that audience, and then also to act and have accountability. And that is one of the greatest things that I see, that from this moving forward, that we hear it now, we're listening, and we're absorbing the change and environment to go with it. So I would like to see, if you were to take yourself back 5 or 10 years in all the different countries you have been to or from, how has it personally been impacting you, that you find yourself, I wonder what it's like there now, or how are they dealing with this? Because those are the things that keep me up at night, is how we can move this forward and change, is the inequalities and things that it's affecting us differently in each country and even different areas. I mean, you look at the pandemic, who's wearing a mask, who's not, you know, are they opening up the states or the counties and different things like that? That little segment, where have you been and how has that changed that you go, I wish maybe I could do something more in that area, that geographical environment, right? So I'm going to go ahead and I guess start with Teresa this time.
Well, I'm looking back. If you look 10 years back, and certainly, you commented, and I do want to touch base real quickly, Desiree, and what Erica said, because it really kind of struck a chord in me. And there are still so many areas in this world that you look at where there is such inequality, especially with women, and we cannot forget that. You talk about the shared love that we have as women of each other, and the shared need to really start to change that chord and also speak out, because we don't always speak out when we see things happening, for fear, right? For fear of, what are they going to say if I say something? Will I risk my life if I say something? But, knowing that in my growing up, there was a lot of abuse in my family, and, there was a lot of uncertainty of being able to do what you can do because you were always told you couldn't do it. So that still pertains in so many Latino families where, women are not allowed to speak out, where women are not allowed to express what their desires are. If they are, they're told, they're beaten down, they're beat up, and so just know that that's when we got to speak up. And that's when we got to say, you are courageous, you can do this, you can step out. And what I see the biggest effect right now in COVID times is the fact that women are subject to being in environments that are not necessarily positive environments. And because of the lockdowns that a lot of countries have in place, especially in countries in Latin America, all over the world, that's even compiled even worse, right? Because you are now really held to not being able to leave the environment that could be an abusive environment. You're not able to get out and be with other people that might be your salvation, that gives you that breath, that gives you that confidence, that gives you that need of being elevated, because sometimes you don't get elevated. And so keeping that in mind, when you ask me what I look at 10 years from now, where do I see, what do I see as far as in other countries? That is still an area that is impacted and has been more so than ever due to the situation that we're currently facing with individuals that do not have resources. They have no choice. The only choice they have is the choice they're in, and that's, survival. And so always keeping that in mind as we look forward, as we see openings, as we see opportunities. I can't wait for this to get over, because honestly, I don't know that I would survived had it not, at that, looking back at my own childhood, had it not been for the opportunities that I was given to go to school, to get away from the negative that was in my everyday life. And so honestly, we have to think about that, because it is very, very dominant still here in this country, as well as in other countries that where there's a domination or a negative impact for women.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, such a huge point, Teresa. I just need to jump in here for a minute. I think you are so spot on with your comments, because you can look at Brazil and what's going on down in South America right now. You know darn well those women are struggling if there was any type of issue in the home. And then you look at domestically in the US, what's happening with domestic violence and children. I think we're talking about, you know, human trafficking. Erica mentioned that earlier. I mean, it's really the COVID virus has really brought out some of the real holes and the real vulnerability of women and children in all the different communities. And so that's something that we do need to really keep front of mind. And you said it very eloquently. So
thank you for that injection, Kelly. And the other thing is that we have the highest 18 to 24-year-olds right now have the highest rate in the United States for suicide. So it really amplifies what you were talking about, Teresa, that when you're locked down or when you're in an environment that you can't leave, you know, the outlet of going to school, the outlet of work, the outlet of other avenues to go with it, seeking help has been, you have a phone and you can't have a conversation, you know, someone's eavesdropping on you, go with it. So thank you for both and great. Erica. How's that playing?
You know, to the points the ladies are making, I think of underrepresentation. And when you look at how we define meaningful participation, the best we can come up with is a UN model that says that we need 1/3 at the table, and not just for numbers sake, but 1/3 in positions of authority, who can vote, who have a say in whatever it is, positions of influence. So when you look at the sphere, not only in the US, but you look elsewhere, where should people be of influence? And it shouldn't just be all women or all men, but we're just talking 1/3 of what? It could be religious sectors. But when you look at representation, politics, when you look at the judicial system, you know, how laws are made, when you look at security, like police forces or military, or the private sector, when you look at the board of directors composition or CEOs, when you look at the medical profession, how does that affect women differently? So you have to have these types of voices. And again, not just one, many of us on this call, actually all of us, have for a long time, still in 2021 are the only, you know, or you might have one other. That is far from the representation numbers needed to affect positive change in these areas of influence. So we should be looking at that. And again, we go back to quotas and people don't like it, and things like affirmative action in this country. And statistics after, you know, all the numbers show that when you have these kinds of representations and these types of different perspectives at the table, it improves everything, the outcomes for customers, for whoever it may be. So we shouldn't do it because we have to. We should do it because
the right thing.
It's the right thing, but it's also, it makes sense on 1,000 levels.
Right. Well, it's one of the pushbacks we had when we were part of the coalition for getting women on boards, you know, as well, you know, you have a positional thing and, oh, you know, you're just doing it. And like, no, it's not affirmative action. You know, we wasn't working before. The bottom line is that we need to have leadership up at the top just to make the decisions, to be part of the conversation. So thank you very much for that, Erica. Kelly.
well, I think I would add to that. I mean, I think when you look at decision making, you need diversity of thought, right? You need diversity of thought. So not only do you want, you know, a certain amount of women, it'd be great to have women of all types, right? Women of all ethnicities, women of all different races, because you just get such a better decision. And there have been study after study about, from the business side, how much more profit you can make when you get diversity of thought at the table. That, let alone the other pieces that Erica already mentioned, as far as just, you know, socially and as far as justice and equality and all of the things that we've already talked about. But when I think back 10 years ago, you know, I've been in the major metropolitan areas of this country, probably the most heavily, and I've done a lot of volunteering and I've done a lot of work in Houston, Atlanta, LA, New York, right? And again, you know, what I would say is I'd like to see change at that social level much more, you know, much more now. I've done a lot of work on the business level, and there's a lot to be done there, but there's so much socially that is just got to get done. And that really starts with education and really making sure we're educating young girls, making sure that they've all got access, making sure that technology is widespread through all of our girls, through all of the poor communities, because it's just not there. And then to Teresa's point, you get COVID and you're stuck in a domestic violence home. You can't get out. You don't have the money. So, I mean, there's so many things on education that need to change. And my hope, the silver lining of COVID, is that it's going to force education to change. It already has. And some of those changes are good. I mean, they're tough when they all come at once, and they're tough for a lot of reasons. But if we aren't looking at ways to make education more available at the early levels for all of our children across this country and across the world, we're missing out, because we need everybody's talent. The world needs everybody's talent. And obviously women are a big part of that. So that's I guess it in a nutshell. I don't know if I answered the question correctly.
No, it's good. It's good because you brought out a phenomenal point about the sustainable goals. You talk about gender being at the table, but you wanted of all backgrounds of the gender. She said, from the lady that I just interviewed this morning, Christina Lunga from France, she says that we need to have gender as the #1 sustainable goal of the 17 that the United Nations has, and everything else goes underneath it. And it should be #5, it should be #1. And so to that point, you think about, sustainability of all these different aspects of climate change and everything else. Women should be at the top. You go down, she says, I'm just asking gender first and then everything underneath it. So Chitra, what about the same question for you?
I will expand the time, the duration, not just 10 years, I would say 25 years. Why? I think in the 25 years, the internet, the World Wide Web, and subsequently social media has really lowered the barrier in terms of getting access to information. So if there is an oppression of women or any minorities, any part of the globe, today the light is, light shines on that. So we are made aware of it. Previously, 25 years ago, unless we had journalists visiting that area and taking that extra trouble of capturing that information and writing about it, information was not very fluid and accessible, because that's the first, visibility to the problem in itself is the first barrier to break, so that we can actually go and do something about it. So I think now we have the information. And that is I would say that is a sea change, Desiree, when you asked us think about where you have come from and what has changed. I think the difference between the time I grew up and the young women who are employed in my company is that tremendous democratic access to information, so that they are more confident and more demanding of, more articulate about what they want in life, what they want out of their career, and rightfully demanding, I would say, in terms of, pay parity. The list goes on, and I just love that, that we have moved from the phase of am I good enough? If I ask what will people think of me, to I deserve this. I am who I am. I am talent. I'm a talent you need. So for me, that's a tremendous sea change for us to recognize as our, I would say, the struggle to establish parity continues. It's not it's a destination we have not arrived at. The World Economic Forum wrote a report that it would take at least 99 years to get anywhere closer to that. So I think we are just begun the journey. We have the information, we have the tools, and that's why I love this year's choose to challenge. That means you can make the challenge very personal. We are all from different background, different issues we have encountered. Some have become very personal, and we'll be able to make our impact in a very personal way. We can choose the challenge that is dear and near to us, and make our impact in a meaningful way. Even if we do not, have the means to organize a global forum, we can have a personal impact in the community we live in, community we work in.
I love it, because choose to, a lot of times people say, well, I'm only one person, it's not going to make a difference. And you really amplified choose to challenge can be personalized. And I have this whole thing about humanizing everything we do. And you brought back the fact that we have different journeys, different experiences, and we all have to amplify. And if we all take a moment and every day look at what we're doing and see if we can't be doing the right thing, or as they all say that, you know, if you can sleep with yourself at night, you get a good night's sleep, right? So if you amplify that and say that choose to challenge being as a personal level, humanize it, then scale it, and then you can go to address the bigger corporations, the bigger entity. One of the things that I had no idea today was that France was actually a big leader in corporate America. A big leader behind America and the big companies. I had no idea they were number 2 in the world. And they were talking about how they have more companies in obviously in France that are women led than they are, like all the cosmetics and all the different things that go out there. And, you know, they were talking about L'Oreal and down the line. And so you brought up, Chitra, that you have, you know, 2/3 of your target market and what they're doing from all different levels. And then you have a team that's 2/3 women, and how you're addressing that to make sure that you bring it to the table and get it done, and see all the issues that are being handled. Because, you know, we've heard too many stories where, oh, we're going to design how it's going to happen when you have a menstrual cycle and all the components of it. And there was no women on the boards designing the whole act, you know, like, so when have you had one lately? You know, how to deal with the effects of it. So that being said, as we only got a few minutes to go around here and closing it out, I think the question would be, now that we're here, we have a captive audience, but not everyone's on the same level of captivity, of capturing that environment, absorbing it, and really taking it to the next level. How would you like to see within your industry or within your country or within your sphere of influence, tap into that to say, this is what I'd like to see within the next 4 to 5 years, that you can actually help address it, or actually be a way to change that environment, that you like to put it out there. We're all about knowledge. We're all about sharing our ideologies to make this a better place and embrace, we call the quality of life here. So I'm going to go ahead and start with Erica with this one.
That's a big question. So
I give you 1 minute.
you know, sometimes women like us on the call have a little bit of a weight on our shoulders, because we're at the age where we've been involved and we've represented, and we're trying to pass the torch to the next generation. We're not 25 anymore. We've been there, we've done that, we've lived it, and we continue to live it. So, you know, just keeping the motivation and the energy to keep moving forward, and don't assume that there's progress. Always keep your eyes wide open. You look at legislation, you look at what's happening around you, around the globe, and you figure out what's being ratified, what's not being ratified, how many laws are there against women's body in the US? Over 200. How many laws are there for men's bodies in the US? 0. So you have to pay attention to what's happening. And if you are 20 years old and you're saying, I don't need you women to fight for me, I don't need you women to march for me, I would say, listen, ladies, I was one of you. I get it. I thought I was the same. You know, we're all one team, but there are differences. And we just need people to be aware and be respectful and to help each other up. And to Kelly's point, there's something really magical about women getting together, especially strong, confident women, and the power that brings, not the competitive piece, not the catty piece, but that piece of really supporting each other. And that is magical. We need more of that. We need more synergies, and we need more understanding that there is still work to do. I'll leave it with that.
Powerful, Erica. Very nice. I mean, to amplify that, look at the spacesuits. They didn't design any for women. You know, like seriously, you know, that they couldn't go up space because, oh, I can't fit into this, so let's go build some. Anyway, thank you for that, Erica. Kelly, you're next.
You know, I have to echo some of those comments. I think passing the torch is a big one. It's a big one, and making sure people understand, you know, there's a difference between judging, because I think we need to let women, every individual woman, do what she wants to do. And sometimes we tend to get judgmental. Well, you're not doing enough, or you almost want them to have more of a career than they may want to have, right? or you almost want them to do something different, go into STEM, and they don't want to go into STEM. They want to be a salesperson. So that's okay. And I think all those things are good because we're all individuals, but you have to have that inspiration. And I think continuing to inspire young women, young girls. I mean, I go all the way down to the young girls, that there is so much they can do, that the door is open. And then to Erica's point, I think watching to make sure it's a level playing field all the way along, and encouraging and giving people the confidence to take those next steps. I think that's really important. So I just think, you know, there's so many things now that are open to women. In some ways I look at it and I think it's a great option. There's so many options. There's great opportunities, but you still have to be able to say yes. You still have to be able to take that step. And that just sometimes just requires some encouragement from someone who's been there along the way. And I think that's what I love, just encouraging and helping continue to inspire.
I love it, Kelly. And you notice how the common theme is pass the torch, which is the NDILC principle this month. Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just thought I'd hone that in and bring it down, you know, forgot, you know, let go with it. Anyway, Chitra, you're next. I love it, Kelly.
Yeah, I'm going to just build on that. It's the theme of solidarity that Erica and Kelly talked about. Keeping it short so Teresa and you can get a moment. Don't forget the journey we have been. That's what I would like to see, that we never forget the countless women, you know, some of whom have been forgotten in the struggles they had. They have worked so hard to pave this ground. Let's not take it for granted. And it's our solemn duty, I think, a responsibility for us to continue to make that ground wider, so more women can take on the journey and continue to keep that forward momentum.
You know, you spoke to my heart, Chitra, on the fact that the women, you think about how we've had such a change in the environment of the statues that are around the country. And we had, you know, so many saying, no, we don't want this statue, we want this. How many women have we seen in statues around the US? And how many times that women have paved the way, but we don't bring them to the forefront. That's one of the reasons that, you know, a magazine was brought out of, I was like, you want us to do a magazine, you know, 13, like, huh? And so it's here today thriving because the fact is that we're bringing those stories that are so different and so widely out there that we have to bring. Look at our Rebecca Steele and everything else in our council, that you go through these stories that are horrific, that we have to keep it the purpose of breaking those barriers and going through the systems. And we should have those statues around to show how we've done it. You know, look at Hidden Figures. We could go down the list of all these incredible women that we have not put out there, and look at the dollar bill. I mean, we could go endless. So thank you for invoking that, Chitra, with me, and to say that we have to choose to challenge ourselves to bring more recognition and to moralize it in a form that we can see every day. And I think that's the power of what we're doing here. So thank you. Teresa, bring us home.
All right. Well, you know, I'm going to, first of all, just really kind of proud to be part of this group and the comments that have come across already. And, you know, my daughter who, and my son both loved Harry Potter growing up. I just, you know, the books and the imagination. And I'm going to share a quote that I really like by J.K. Rowling, you know, who really struggled to get her books even published. And it was, you know, again, this one was really powerful for me because I think it really kind of talks about that we do not need magic to change the world. We carry all the power we need inside ourselves already. We just have the power. We just have to have the power to imagine better and make it happen. So I just love that. And that's really what we can all do, is that power to imagine it and make it happen. So that's really kind of how I leave our, you know, final comments from me, because we all have it in us. We just have to move forward. We have to make it, imagine it, and it will, again, my belief, that's my principle, and make it better for everyone.
And we just had that last month. So thank you for that. No, and these are why these principles are so powerful, because we're hitting all those buttons. We had, you know, keep achieve, we had acknowledge trailblazers, we had believe, we have pass the torch, and we get to Chitwas and, you know, the prepare for the future and go on. This is what this is all about, that we're amplifying and putting together our ability to collaborate from different walks of life, different experiences, different countries, different ideologies, and different industries. It elevate women, bridge industries, change the world. And if you think about the amplification of choose to challenge, that's really what we're doing here. So I want to thank, we're right on the money, and that's very unusual for Desiree to hit it right on the money and on the minute to tell you, because she just likes to talk. So I want to thank you all for, yeah, all right, ciao, everybody. 6 more to go, so I have to be on point. But thank you all for an incredible day. And as I close out, it's International Women's Day every day. So thank you all. Have a great day, and appreciate your valuable support and time. So thank you all. Have a good one.
Thanks. Bye,
International
everybody.
Women's Day, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.